Hey guys, welcome to another Flashback review, and I might as well talk about the very first film I saw with my mom. And I say with my mom for a reason. I was extremely young, and being the fact that a lot of movies I have saw, whether I remember them or not, was on television, especially during the weekends. Channel 11, New York, played a lot of movies back to back in the weekends. We had the Albert Costello Hour. We had movies that were shown, including the movie of the week. They showed that a lot as well. To say this was the very first movie I've ever seen would be a little bit of unfair statement. I can say this was the first of only, I guess, three films that I saw with my mom. Me and my mom went together. We sat down. We saw it. I can tell you, I saw it with Fanny Opera, Nightmare on Street 5, and also with this film, which is Purple Rain. And it's kind of funny because I don't know why my mom took me to see this movie until I probably gotten older. And this is why I always say sometimes I often wonder if my mom went to see the movie because she thought it was a good movie, or she went to see the movie because she was a fan of a particular person. Because most of the movies she saw were either A, movies based on that stars magicians. She saw The Wiz starring Diana Ross. She saw Purple Rain, Under the Cherry Moon, a documentary that Prince had, Graffiti Bridge. All these were musicians. She saw Cross Crew, Beat Street, all these based on music she had. She was a big time album collector. Any music she had, she bought the album for and she played it. That was one thing about my mom. She always had a collection of albums. It was very, very cool because I got to listen to music and I got to appreciate music as well as movies. So in many ways, Purple Rain did influence me in terms of movies. And during 1989, I went to see a lot of movies. But before I went to see all those movies, Purple Rain was the first major experience I had. And I can tell you right now, my mom mentioned this to me. I never forget it. She said I was crying in the theater, and she took me home. And that was probably the last time until I got older that we went to the movies together, and with good reasons. I was a kid, thinking it was dark. I just saw the film at a later date via video cassettes. Someone had it at home, watched it, and I actually saw it again. And then I realized that every time I seen this film, even when I owned it at one time for $7.99 at RKL Videos, I never had a staying power with this movie, and it's one of those films I regard as overrated for that, and there was a good reason for it. When I finally saw it again and tried very hard to make sure I remember some of the key elements of the film again, it came to a realization of why this film uh, didn't have a staying power for me. The script was sloppily put together. The story was sloppily put together. A lot of stuff was there and then it just left. A perfect example, we had the incident with Prince's character and the domestic situation with his family, mainly his father. You had the situation with the band, how the band was pretty much just barely trying to hang on. You had the rivalry between him and Morris Day, which, by the way, Morris Day in the movie was actually kind of fun to watch. I actually enjoyed him when he was on screen. You had this unconvincing love story, him trying to be like this badass rebel, and just basically a whole bunch of stuff being thrown in here that never really added up. It never really felt that was well flushed out. In fact, it wasn't flushed out. The acting in this movie was mediocre to bad at best. And not to take any disrespect towards Prince. Prince, to me, in my opinion, I respect deeply as an entertainer, a musician entertainer. That is his craft. I enjoy listening to his work. I admire him very, very much. He is still selling out concerts to this day. You will never hear me disrespect him as a musician, as a music entertainer, as a performer. That is his strong point. In fact, it is one of the reasons why I saved this film for me trashing it completely. But as an actor, not a very good one. As fact, I think that was his major weakness in this film. He's not good in this movie. This was not. This is not one of the best performances that I have ever seen. In fact, I cringe when I see him on screen when he's trying to act. It's not a great acting movie for him. However, let's give credit where credit is due. What he lacked in acting, he sure the hell made up in his music. And I go on to say, I said this before when I did the overrated list, and this was on my list of being one of the overrated films because this film has a strong fan base. A lot of people love this film for many different reasons, and you know what? That's fine. I have no problem with that. But let's keep it real here. What, in terms of my opinion, what really made this film, what saved this film, was the fact of the music. This has got to be the best soundtrack movie I have ever seen. I have ever heard. What I don't remember about the movies, I remember deeply about the music. I actually became a Times fan because of the music. Morris Day and the Time. My mom had the album. I had the cassettes. I still listen to that music to this day. Even I believe one of the wrestlers, Coco Beware, had the Bird as his entrance music before they even considered entrance music to be a big part of business in the WWE. The music was fantastic. There were some that were bad, but there were very little bad performances. Most of the soundtrack, including Purple Rain itself, is a fantastic, wonderful soundtrack. Still has a staying power to this day, and I wouldn't be too surprised that almost anyone who has a top 5 best soundtrack list, you'll find Purple Rain among the top 5, no close to the top 10 in the list. You will not see it anywhere higher than that. But to me, that's what made Purple Rain so unique. It had a kick-ass soundtrack. It is one of the best soundtracks adapted to the movie. I think the soundtrack has 10 times more of the staying power than the movie itself. Like I said, I barely remember this movie. Even when I just recently saw it, this film is still barely hanging on into my brain. But the soundtrack is phenomenal. It would never go away. Purple Rain, Computer Blue, Let's Get Crazy, When Doves Cry, Nikki, you name it, Read All the Stars. This was an ultimate soundtrack, and that's because Prince is a magnificent musician. He is definitely a good artist in that type of field, and I'm glad to have my mom bought the soundtrack for me. I was happy to listen to this soundtrack over and over again. I can continue to listen to this soundtrack as if it was just released last week. That's how strong the soundtrack is. And to its credit, it actually kept this movie afloat to a certain degree. You may hate the movie, but you may love the soundtrack. There's nothing wrong with that. I know a lot of movies that has great soundtracks that gets more credit than the movie itself. This is one of them. My problem with this movie, I just explained: bad acting, poor execution in terms of story. The pacing was okay. It ain't something to laugh about, but I just felt that the film was sloppily put together. It really wasn't no major focus. And to be honest with you, it really didn't have a good ending either, but you didn't really pay that much attention to it because what was the last couple of songs? Purple Rain, We Are the Stars, and pretty much those music alone just basically carry right through the ending where you say, oh, this is some great music, but wait, did anything really got resolved? Yeah, they show like flashbacks of what happened. The father did not die, even though, he shot himself in the head. He got a big bandage, but he didn't die. He actually made it with his girlfriend. Morris Day, who he was feuding with in this movie, even was getting down and digging the music. So there was a lot of so it pretty much, that's how they choose to end it. You know what? That's fine because the music overall was awesome, and that's something that I think people was very happy with in the end. This film was nominated for the Academy Award, I believe, for the music that was displayed in here. I don't know if it won. I pretty much doubt it because they didn't say. I know it was nominated for it. As for reviews, it had its up and downs. I think that it had pretty favorable reviews for the most part. To me, I'm like this. I love the soundtrack. I love the music of this movie. You'll never hear me debate about this. The music of this film, I love it. It is the one. It is, in my opinion, what got me into liking music a lot more. I didn't hear anything about Prince till my mom introduced me to him, and even though I didn't like the movie, didn't care for it, I bought the soundtrack when my tape broke. I bought it again. I made it my business to have that as part of my music collection. It is still part of my music collection in MP3 format. I have it in my computer. This is my soundtrack. As for the movie, it's not a good movie. It could have been a whole lot better than what it was presented. Nevertheless, it gets 2.5 stars. And why is it getting 2.5 stars? Why is it getting a not bad but could have been better? Because, again, the music itself carried this movie. Prince's performance on stage, Prince's performance in terms of his energy when he got on stage, and the music that was presented in this film save this film. So it's very rare where you have the soundtrack saving an actual movie, and that's to me where I differ from it. It's very hard for music itself to carry a film through, and this film I've done it. If I got anything to say is that's a very good positive towards Prince as an entertainer, as a music entertainer. Acting wise, not so much. Well, that's my own opinion of this movie. You guys may disagree. I know a lot of you guys who love Purple Rain will pretty much disagree with me, pretty much think I'm crazy by feeling this way, but that's okay too. Just tell me what you like about the film. I like to have this debate because I know there's a lot of people, especially in the urban area, consider this to be one of the best films that came out during the 80s. Me, I'm not going to say that, but I will say it is, musical wise, it is one of the better music movies based on a music soundtrack, based on an album that came out. And I say that because there was very consideration of just putting Purple Rain out as a standalone album, but they made it as a soundtrack to a movie. So you guys can determine yourself whether they made the right decision or not. But in any case, that's my opinion. Love to hear your opinion. Love to hear your comments below. Let me know. Until then, this is J77 saying take care, be safe. I'll talk to you soon.